You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you are here with us. We do have an exciting show in store for you today. Lots to cover. We somehow have our website back up and running in terms of the news aggregator, but there is one feature not working on it. It's the most important one. It's the one that aggregates only Sudbury news. It just grabs all the news from all the Sudbury outlets, whether it's Sudbury-centric, provincial, national, international, and just puts it together. But then we have a feature where you can just filter it and just have Sudbury. But that particular one is not working at the moment. We'll have to get that up and running. Hopefully it's up and running by Monday so we can easily navigate going through the news of the day, Sudbury centric that is. And welcome to all the people from Sudbury joining us this morning, whether it's on the radio, whether it's streaming online at CKLU 96.7 FM, or it's streaming video at facebook.com/Sudbury News or youtube.com/Sudbury News. So we welcome you and thankful that you're with us. We have a few people jumping on this morning already, so glad to have you here. And we'll get started right away with the weather, get right into it. We got a good show for you today, a little bit of a follow-up from yesterday, and then, hopefully it's a good send-off into the weekend. So happy Friday, everyone. We'll be back with the weather and more right after this. Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. It's currently 12 degrees Celsius in Greater Sudbury with some rain showers. Today we can expect cloudy, 60% chance of showers this morning and early this afternoon. If you or anything like us, we experienced tons of wind yesterday. It was extremely windy where we are. Today, winds will be gusting up to 50 kilometers per hour this morning. A high of 17 today, UV index 3 or moderate. Tonight, clearing this evening. Wind northwest, 20 kilometers becoming light this evening. Low of 10. And Saturday, sunny, wind becoming southwest, 20 kilometers late in the morning. High of 24, the humidex 27. And the UV index will be 8 or very high. Sounds like it's going to be a nice day tomorrow, as you can see in the long-range forecast here. Sunny and 24. Who could ask for more? Sunday, 30% chance of showers, which means a 70% chance of non-showers or not. It's not going to rain, so that's good news. High of 27, like I said. And Monday, 24, mix of sun and cloud, 40% chance of showers on Tuesday, high of 20, and 23 and 22 degrees, mix of sun and cloud for Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. Here's a look at your satellite taken today at 1:30 a.m. So usually the wind is coming from the west, and it's pushing the clouds, so it's probably... clouds are even, the clearing is coming in from the west, as you can see, pushing the clouds away. It's like this, for those on the radio, the screen is split. Clearing on the left, clouds on the right, and it's basically a map of Ontario. So Sudbury's still under cloud cover, unfortunately, but like we said, it'll be clearing up later and then into tomorrow. It's definitely going to be sunny. So that's your weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with much, much more, including your comments, the news headlines of the day. Hopefully, we'll see if we can grab a couple, some Sudbury news, and then a little bit into the state of our media, I guess you can say, and where we find ourselves in this kind of pivotal moment in media in general, not only in Canada, but in the world. We'll talk about that and why it's so important. What's going on in the world that makes media such a thing that needs to be so reformed, radically reformed, that is. We'll be back right after this. Okay, and here we are back, and we have a few people joining us and already commenting. I just wanted to encourage you to comment on the show. It's basically a show to facilitate a conversation. Yesterday was less of a conversation. I know Stephen pointed that out. It was not on purpose. At the odd time, we do have some content we want to get out there at the same time, right? But as we know, if we've been part of this show for any particular time at all, we know that there's a lot of conversation going on. So there has to be a mix. There has to be a good balance between conversation and content. And so we try to do the best we can on this volunteer radio show on a volunteer basis. Your host is volunteer. So, Judy, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Happy Friday. Vin, happy Friday. Good morning to everyone. Good morning. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. Thanks, Belinda, for that. Very positive. And speaking of positive, Dave, one of the most positive people, says, guessing we're not mentioning all the forest fires and people losing their homes. Well, actually, we are going to be mentioning that. So, yes, we will be. Thanks for the positive shout out this morning, Dave. Obligatory happy Friday message. Yes, for sure. Good morning, Sudbury, Monique. That was Shane, by the way. Good morning, Shane. Good morning, Sudbury. So, Isaiah, good morning. I was thinking that it would be nice if you covered Sudbury politics. What is our city council up to, and what is happening in town, for sure. We normally do that more than not. However, with the Facebook, the new Online Media Act that the Canadian federal government has put through, Facebook and Google have taken exception to that and no longer allow news to be shared, whether it's local or national or international, on their platform. So that's what we were using mainly for our content on the show, to share. It's easy to grab things from all the outlets because they're sharing them and they're there to share on our feed, and then voila, you had a show. But now it's not that easy. In my website right now, there's a glitch with the Sudbury News tab. I wouldn't doubt it if people behind the scenes can do little different things to thwart what's going on. It seems like there's an all-out attack on media in general and news, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So anyways, yes. Yes, so we've been talking about, and we've had city councillors on. We've had Natalie Labby, Ward 7 councillor, on 2 times on the show, and she continues to comment on the show continually, and we're grateful for that. And Mike Parent was on the show twice and also joins us on the show and checks in through comments as well. But yeah, we will get more into that as time goes on. We're on every day between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. There's so many issues to talk about in terms of news. Good morning, Denise. Thanks for being with us. From Espanola, by the way, no less. The 4 youth charged with arson in Alberta or Hawaii, Maui fire, and failed FEMA help. So yeah, so there's that going on. And again, mainstream news having a hard time really unpacking what's really going on. Are they having a hard time, or are they not covering it? We're not sure, right? So there's all kinds of nefarious things going on that news and reporters used to in the past uncover as they are a watchdog for the population, right? but there's an all-out attack against that particular idea of journalism in general, and we wonder why, but we'll see if we can unpack some of it today. I'm hearing the RCMP are investigating for a woman in the Northwest Territories for arson. Okay, for sure. Yesterday's rant from the right-wing dude about needing a COVID vaccine was F years out of date. Okay, interesting. Good opinion there. I appreciate that for sure. There's an agenda at our town halls free for everyone. Oh, sorry. There's an agenda at our town halls free for everyone. Go to the meetings or get the agenda. Get out there and get involved for sure, everyone. Thank you so much for volunteering your time. Thank you, Isaiah. Appreciate it. Thank you for being on today. Good morning. Prayers for the Northwest Territories for sure. Regardless of what's going on, how the fires are caused, so much damage and, loss of homes, loss of lives in a lot of instances, and incredibly drastic and unfortunate and devastating for so many people. I think what happens is we're trying to find out why so many fires in so many places strategically, near populations as well. And so many out there would make the leap very quickly to just say the two words, right? It's climate change. And if it's that simple, I guess climate change goes around with a lighter and lights things on fire. Sure, climate change is a factor, it's a narrative that's out there, mainly driven by governments and the mainstream media, that nothing else needs to be looked into. It's just climate change. Just pay your money and we got this, right? Well, it doesn't look like they got it very well. Things, and you're going to see it getting worse. I guarantee you. You have my word for that. It's not going to get any better. You can tax us till we have no more money left, which is happening basically. And we won't see a reduction in any of these so-called, climate change induced weather incidents going on in the world. Yes, JD said Yellowknife is burning suddenly. That's from Denise. So we are thinking, the government is the cause of the problems with this show. How about the push for defunding of news? Yeah, I think the government is accountable for things for sure. Like they're the ones taking responsibility for it as well, saying they are responsible, right? So here you have the tax. There's climate change. We're responsible for it. So we're going to tax you because we're going to do something about it. If they just laid back and said, wow, things are going on, we'll let the scientists, we'll let the citizens, we'll let the organizations kind of work their way out in the different areas, then the government definitely wouldn't be as responsible. But they're taking that upon themselves. They're saying, no, let us take care of it. We'll fix it. We'll, like they do with everything. And then you see how it turns out with our healthcare. For one thing, we talked about that on the show yesterday. How's that working? And when there's more government oversight and, things with everything, anything when there's big government involved, the quality goes down. Always has, always will. I don't care who you are or what you think. That's a fact. The more government gets involved and there's bureaucracy and red tape and, legislations and policies and regulate everything, it slows things down. It makes things more complicated. And at the end of the day, you can't get things done. And that's what happened in Maui. They can't get food to the people because it has to be government regulated and only through the Red Cross or through FEMA. People they're taking boats into Maui with supplies so that they can actually get to the people. And the supplies aren't getting to the people through the Red Cross and through FEMA. So you see big government, big organizations, they're not able to get things done as much as individuals and small groups. It just never has been the case, and it never will be the case. DEW is up and running just fine. Believe it or not, DEW is being used and there's many instances being caught on camera. And I've seen that myself as well. Defunding the news is a fantastic idea. Let them find their own funding. Exactly. I love that idea. I think we should defund the news and let it sort itself out, like everything. Like I was saying, even with the conditions of climate change, let people in their own areas figure things out. Let everybody be. Even with the restrictions on news, your show is still very well done. Well, thank you very much. Great conversations. I appreciate that, Belinda. And it's not going to, like someone came on yesterday and said it was the worst show in the world. And I believe for that person, it was. And you can't have the greatest show for everybody. You can't please everybody all the time. It's impossible. We're just doing our best, and that's all I can do anyways. Gas is running out soon. The winter is not going to be easy. Like Ukraine, we're next. Okay, and I do think there is some of that. And so with that, Dave, I think your idea of doom and gloom is correct. There is doom and gloom coming. I just think where it's coming from, I just think you're a little misguided on where it's actually coming from. Seriously, you're thinking climate change is a thing? Maybe give a few examples of climate change. That's what I mean. I think you're just kind of on to, like I was already about climate change in 1989, before everyone else was. I was already there. I wrote a song called Goodbye, which said goodbye to Mother Nature. It's over. We're done. That was 1989. That was a long time ago. I'm a musician, so a songwriter, and I was already feeling, wow, there's something's going on here. And that, just like many of us, was just blaming man's mismanagement of the planet, blaming man's mismanagement of being a steward of the planet and what we were doing, polluting it and everything. And it's wrong. And we can't be polluting the planet, and we shouldn't be. But just like every movement, it was hijacked. It was hijacked by a small group of people, elite people, seeing a way that they can get their agenda put forth. Like Black Lives Matter, you're friggin' right, they do. All lives matter. And I remember that was controversial to say a few years ago, that all lives matter. How dare you say that? Because of the plight of, but that was only because of the movement or the idea that we should not be prejudiced and not racist was hijacked. It was hijacked by a few white people, by the way, a group of white people at the top, very rich and elite, that hijacked that movement and made it into their own. Same with LGBTQ2S+, and all the movements. And climate change is no different. It was hijacked by this same small group of people that have the means and the power to influence a society. And they use these movements, the feminist movement as well. Who doesn't believe that men and women are equal, for crying out loud? But back in the 60s, it was hijacked to the point where now we need two people in the family, a mom and a dad, to basically work in order just to pay the bills. And so you can see how that movement went. So sure, you were equal, but it's more tax money now, and the families have less influence in the homes because mom and dad are both out there. So who wins out of the movements is what you have to see. They're all hijacked by a small group of people that have agendas, and eventually it's like Monopoly, right? It's like the world's a big Monopoly game. This small group of people, they're going to buy everything up. And so they have to figure out how they're going to do that. And when there's a grassroots organic movement that goes along, they just have to hijack it, make it their own, and make it, better for their purposes. We'll have more on that, how that works with one particular movement, the equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's a great, we're not, hey, who doesn't want equity, diversion, and inclusion? Who doesn't want that? It was hijacked, though, and then the way that it's being used, we'll unpack that. And it's just like any movement, and climate change is no different than that. Is the climate changing? Of course it is. Why it's changing? That's the key. And you don't know. I guarantee you don't know. I don't know either. I don't know everything about it. I can speculate a lot of things, but am I going to kill myself because it's happening? No. Should we kill people because the climate is changing? That's the agenda of these small groups of people. Get rid of people. It's a depopulation eugenics movement that's been around forever. And these people at the top really believe that the planet is overpopulated. Not enough food. I guess they haven't driven from here to Timmins, though. I guarantee you that. Any of these people. You can't find a house between here and Timmins, hardly. And that's a vast area. Now take that and look at the rest of Canada. What, there's not enough land to grow food for people? Really? Honestly? Really? Give your head a shake. All they do is focus on these big cities and stuff and look at the populations there. And so anyways, we'll get into that. I'm kind of obviously getting a little bit off track here. Julia, good morning all. Yes, Julia, I hope you're healing well. I heard about your ankle. I'm sorry about that. And happy Friday, by the way. Have you been outside today? LOL. Yeah, not too hot. Good to see people that surround Maui getting supplies to the people for sure. So privatize road building, all schools, fire halls, and police. Possibly, yes. Julia, you can't please everyone, that's for sure. I think, yeah, small towns doing their own thing is really the greatest. Small groups of people. That's why you see volunteer organizations. They're so effective. Like, really, I'm not the greatest in the world, but I do the news every morning and I'm not paid for it. And I have very simplified means of doing it. And I'm able to be, resourceful enough. And I can do, the more time I put into it, the better job can be done. And I think a lot more gets discussed on this show than does in our mainstream media by people making hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year. And you don't even know what information you're getting, honestly. Is it influenced by these small groups of people that I'm talking about it? Yes, for sure. It is, yeah. And yeah, so it just goes to show you when you care about your community, you live in your community, you drive on the roads, you're affected by everything in your small community, you care about it, you want the best for it. And as things get more and more centralized and get more and more globalized, there's less and less people making decisions locally that they care about it. So the more you have smaller groups of people who care about the things in charge of them, that's where you get the best results. As soon as you go big, the one size fits all thing. You know how long it took them to build a bridge over a creek in my neck of the woods over here? 2 years. Well, really a year. It took them a year to build a bridge over a creek where they can build a hospital in China. Not that I agree with their it actually, it's ironic I'm using that example because they are big government, but they're to the extreme, the extreme totalitarian, communist, where they can do that as a government. That's where we're heading to, because we're saying we can't get things done. There's no way. So either you go back to smaller groups of people doing it like we used to have, where a lot of people in churches and volunteer organizations, charities, and things like that can just take care of these needs in our communities. We're heading to that because we're going to need to get things done. We can't have a little small bridge over a creek take a year to build. That's insane. And there's a lot of examples of our medical system, people dying because the wait times are way too long. Like, that's just government bureaucracy. That's all that it is. It's layers and layers and layers and layers of things that are unnecessary put on us by big government. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan. Not a fan of big government. You can be, and you have that right to be. And that's the great thing about us all being different, having our own opinions. And you can be a hater. Like, for instance, there's some people that come on this show every day and hate it. I don't understand it. I have no understanding of that whatsoever. I would never keep going on a show that I hated the host, hated the content, disagreed with everything. I'd be like, there's so much I could be doing right now and watching and listening to that I definitely wouldn't be here every day. So I marvel, so my life is like, I have the scientific mind and I marvel at that. I'm like, what makes a person do that? I honestly don't know. So Noel says whoever those people are, have the power. They have it. They will not let it go without a fight. And that's what we're seeing now too, I think, right? We're seeing the fight. We're seeing a lot of people kind of catching on because of the internet, because of open media for so long. People are able to get information like they couldn't before. And they're kind of waking up to stuff going, wait a minute here. What's going on? Who's making these decisions? Why are they? And it's starting to, now they're starting to double down and really come back. And you see things like shutting down of media, which we talk about. We see things like hijacking grassroots, really good causes at the beginning and hijacking them for their purposes. Good morning. Stay safe, David. I hope you're having a great recovery there. Thanks for checking in. The movements become memes and useless. Exactly. 100% agreed. So many comments coming in here. I'm just going over them because we do want to continue to move on with the show today, because we have a really great announcement. Speaking of local, as I'm just getting through the comments, we must have had 1 million or more. Speaking in Donald Trump terms. Mike McDonald we have on here. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into what Candace Owen says. Okay, sorry. Just the reason why I'm sharing Mike's is because I don't normally see Mike commenting on the show. So I want to give people who might not have the time to get in there as well. But I'm sharing all of them on the screen so that way everybody so what happens with Facebook is if you go back and watch the video, a lot of the comments are taken out after because they have algorithms, I guess, that moderate the video and comments that they deem to be, I don't know, maybe dangerous in Justin Trudeau's words, they'll be cleansed out of the conversation. And so I do my best to get them up on the screen. So if ever, there's basically a record of what everybody is saying at least. And, people can hear your point of view. Whether I agree with it or anyone else on the show agrees with it, it is your opinion. And I think that's great. What was it? Voltaire said would fight to the death so that you could have the opportunity to disagree with me. I take that exact same, and I'm paraphrasing that. And I don't even know if that's who can be attributed to that saying or not. Okay. So yeah, Noel, I'll get you again here. 3 investment companies own 88% of the world's markets. These same companies are the supply chain. Yes, for sure. Very scary too when you put all your eggs in one basket. But getting to local here, this is an announcement I was sitting on for a long time, being aware of it. There's soccer. A soccer team going to be coming to town. Professional soccer. The Sudbury Wolves Sports and Entertainment Group are excited to announce, in conjunction with League One Ontario L10, that elite men's soccer is coming to Sudbury. The Sudbury Wolves Sports and Entertainment Group is proud to bring back soccer to Northern Ontario after acquiring the license to operate a men's pro-amateur soccer team within the League One Ontario Pyramid for the 2024 season. After 4 decades, the Sudbury Cyclones have re-emerged, filling a void in the soccer landscape of Northern Ontario. The Sudbury Cyclones will join the SWSE family alongside the organization's current sports clubs, the Sudbury Wolves, the Sudbury Five, and the Sudbury Spartans, all of the different age groups. Joining the League One Ontario Pyramid with the Sudbury Cyclones is not merely a revival, it's a testament to our unwavering commitment to the growth and enrichment of sports entertainment in Greater Sudbury, said owner and CEO Dario Zulich in a press release. Soccer is one of the fastest growing sports in North America, and we are poised to ride the wave, catering to a vast demographic that resonates with our values and mission. Together with the community, we are not just bringing back the team, we're reigniting a spirit and laying the groundwork for a vibrant soccer-loving culture. Soccer is growing, in North America since we have the league operating in North America for soccer. It's been really growing, and some really high-end players coming over here to play. So the Cyclones will carry the pride and passion of a rich history, but will also inspire new generations to play, cheer, and dream of a beautiful sport. The SWSE will also introduce Dana Corelli as general manager of the Sudbury Cyclones and Connor Van Way as the sporting director. So that's pretty exciting news. So congratulations there. A new sport, a new team coming here. I'll look back in a few hours. I've never had a comment taken off. No. There's been many though, because I go back on the show and sometimes it has the choice between newest comments and in time comments and then all comments. And then sometimes the all comments doesn't even work. So I go back pretty much every day because I'm not able to see all comments as the show's going on, having to be the technical guy, be the on-air guy, be, everything. I'm not able to do that. And it's a good thing that we have so many comments coming on here. Although, as you know, anyone posting can remove any of the comments off their post. So maybe people can do it too, for sure. Awesome Sudbury Cyclones soccer, that's for sure. Someone doesn't like hockey. Okay. So Dario's using this as a push to try to get a new venue built for him. Possibly. He's had this idea for a long time, though, and the soccer wouldn't be played in that venue. It would be outdoors. But yes. Okay, so here's so many comments here. And there's people having conversations with each other. So we'll just get those up on the screen and we'll head on to our next story. And that's the media that's being attacked. And why is it? We're not sure. I have my speculations, but nobody knows 100% for sure. But there is an organization out there. There's many organizations out there. Remember when fact check became a thing on Facebook? Facebook fact checkers? And we wondered, who's doing the fact checking anyways? Is God coming down and fact checking everyone? So we know absolute truth, absolutely. I don't think so. So it has to be a person or a group of people that are fact checking. And then I wondered, who's fact checking the fact checkers? So there has to be, someone who's in charge of that. And so here we have an example of who are actually in charge. And here we go. So there's a new group, and they're called... Oh, this is one of the longest articles I've ever seen in my life. So we'll just kind of get a few things out of it. How NewsGuard became the establishment guard against independent media. Company makes a profit, including from U.S. government funds, through a business model that leads to defunding and censoring of independent media. So here's a group that's getting government funding, and their mandate is there to kibosh independent media. Go figure. NewsGuard. What is NewsGuard? As difficult as it is to run an independent media outlet, even a volunteer one, there's a company making it substantially harder. Its name is NewsGuard. The company claims to rate online content, including from media outlets, for trustworthiness. But a closer look shows it does much more than that. Its business model produces censorious pressure on news organizations. An investigation by the Epoch Times has revealed troubling questions regarding the quality and the agenda behind NewsGuard's offerings. So here's the thing. Some people feel, oh, what is Epoch Times? Oh, no. They have a different point of view. And as far as I can see, they do real journalism more than I see in mainstream. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. And here's something that kind of alludes to that. If it's true or not, they say the Epoch Times have many questions about this, which journalism, the mainstream journalists should be doing that. There's lots of fires. We should have questions. Who started them? What's going on? Could we have prevented them? No, they're right away. Climate change. That's the reason. Okay. That's journalism? No. So again, so many people have a issue, I've noticed, with even the Epoch Times in general, but I find they're one of the most unbiased sources of media that I've been able to see that cover a lot of mainstream topics. And I'm really grateful for them. So good morning, everyone. Denise, thanks for being with us. There's so much going on in today's world and journalism. Like I went into the Sudbury Star 10 years ago, and it was a huge building on Mackenzie Street, or let's say 20 years ago. Thousands, hundreds of people worked there. Now they don't even have an office. They don't even have a brick and mortar building in town. So it just goes to show you how media itself, where's the watchdogs? Where are they? Who are they? How are we getting our news? Well, how is it being done? Like, what's going on? Right? Why is it dwindling? Why is it an industry? You think now more than ever it should be vibrant. People are hungrier than ever for news, to know and make sense of the world we live in. But yet the industry is shrinking. Does not make any sense to me, does it? If it was a world where supply and demand was in fact the way that things work, there's a big demand for news. So this NewsGuard, founded in 2018, NewsGuard dispatches its analysts to prepare reviews of online content creators and to issue ratings. Here you go. Remember, this is what I said before? I said what the plan is going to be is government-sponsored media. Like, you got to get the government checkmark. You got to get this is verified news. The other stuff is it's sketchy. You can't trust it. You need to be afraid of it. Don't listen to it. It's bad. And so you just end up hearing government-sanctioned news until the point where it makes it illegal to actually do it. And someone like myself, if I tried to do it, would be jailed. Now, people sit back and go, that's conspiracy theory. But you'll see it in the future. It's your future, so you'll see it, and you'll remember me saying it. So that's where it's going. And when you're on a road and you look ahead and you can see where you're going. You're going so fast. You see the smokestack coming into Sudbury. Hey, there's a smokestack. I know where I'm going. I'm going to be there because I'm going 100 kilometers an hour. Smokestack's about so far away. I know where we're going. When you can see all these laws and policies being passed, you can see where it's headed. It's not hard. Media is going to be government-only media, and anyone else will be, first of all, demonized. They're going to try and they're already doing that. They're demonized. Heck, Joe Biden demonized anyone who follows Donald Trump as a traitor to the country, basically. An enemy, a public enemy. If you vote for someone else, you're a public enemy. So that's the language we're already getting from, the leaders of the world, that they're opponents, and then they try jailing them. They try, that's what's going on. And if you believe what the media is saying of the reasons why, then I don't have anything to say for you. I just don't. If you're believing the reasons, you just look at history, just study history, study governments in history, and you can totally see what's going on. It's not hard. And they got to control the media. They got to control the message. They just do. Or they can't do what they're doing. They got to do what they're doing. They have an agenda. And in order to do it, they got to shut up the people that are calling them out. It just is what it is. It's happened in every country where a government has tried to control the people. And it will not be any different in this circumstance. And you can hate on that as much as you want. You can use CNN's headlines as much as you want to rebuttal. It doesn't matter. You're going to be wrong. You're going to live in the same world as I'm just telling you about right now. You're going to have a different reason for it because the government-sanctioned media is going to tell you the reason for it is different from what I said because you're going to still believe it. But it is going to be it. And they're not predicting that right now. They're not saying that's the way things are headed, right? The people in mainstream media, everything's fine, hunky-dory as far as they're concerned. Oh, wait, climate change. That's right. That's the enemy. The planet is killing you. There's a virus that's killing you. Mosquitoes are killing you. Everything's killing you. Be afraid. Remember we talked about that on the show the other day? That's what your media is telling you. But anyways, good thing for NewsGuard to protect us from all that. The other people saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be so afraid. Maybe you need to think for yourself. Maybe you need to find out information on your own and not have it spoon-fed to you all the time. Okay, so It's going to represent a small part of the picture. The bigger picture shows that NewsGuard's most potent function stems from its relationship with advertising agencies, which have steered their clients to cut off advertising dollars for content creators disfavored by the company's analyst reviews. So yeah, so if you get a bad review from this NewsGuard, then advertisers, they'll be shamed if they advertise with you, right? It's all about shaming, public shaming. Even in China with their social credit score, which is coming to you too, by the way. Well, there's a prediction. You can remember me saying to you on this show that we're going to have a social credit score. We're going to have a CBDC, a government cryptocurrency, if you will. It's not really crypto. It's just digital currency, which we already have, but it'll be all government controlled. And you'll go to the grocery store and you'll go to buy a steak and they'll say, sorry, you already bought a steak this week. You can't buy another steak because, first of all, cows are bad for the climate and we got to really keep it down, the amount of cows that are being eaten. And you're not allowed to eat that much steak. So you won't be able to buy it. That's what's coming. And then if you do something, whatever, you'll be shamed publicly. They do that in China already. Your picture is up on a big screen. If you did something bad, public shaming. It's all coming to a theater near you. But this NewsGuard thing, so take the time, look into what NewsGuard is, and they're going to be the news police. The news police, they are inside of your head. So that's a Cheap Trick, little take on that. Oh, I might get... Yeah, sorry about that. I might get taken off for copyright infringement there. Hopefully not. Yeah. So that's the world we're living in. And some of the news that we're used to getting, we don't get anymore. And we won't get. Now, I had a video lined up here. Let's see if we got it. Not really sure. That was our leap into the other show the other day. And, oh well, let's just do this again then. Since I already did, there we go. So this is, just basically a shot in the arm of, oh, that's interesting. Of what's happening. Let's see if it'll go this time. Maybe it's just not meant to be. It's just not playing. Okay. No, we're going to take a shot at this. So an idea of, what happens when you're not allowed to report on certain things and the importance of watchdogs out in our communities, right? Who care about the community. So here's an instance in California where you'd really want to have watchdogs on the ground because these NewsGuard people and people that are controlling the news at the high levels don't want certain information to get out. You got to ask yourself why, but here you go. Here's an example of that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News. You may have heard about an illegal Chinese lab that was discovered in California housing dozens of deadly pathogens, including COVID, tuberculosis, HIV, and dengue fever. That's a pretty big deal, especially since COVID, so the corporate media covered it up. Nothing to see here. The Associated Press led the way, breathlessly claiming that an illicit Chinese-owned lab fueled conspiracy theories, but officials say it posed no danger. See, no danger, all good. Other media organizations just parroted the Associated Press, despite the fact that there are at least 305 pages of court filings to do with the shutting down of the lab that all say the opposite. Of course, reading 305 pages takes a long time, and those 305 pages also contain a lot of uncomfortable truths, so the media just decided to stick to the official narrative. Well, not on this show. We dug into the facts and can now tell you the real story. And what a crazy story it is. A national scandal of epic proportions. Last week, there were reports about an illegal Chinese-owned lab in a small town in California. The media quickly decided that this was all a giant nothing burger, and that the mere fact that it was being reported at all only fueled conspiracy theories, the media's favorite term for making uncomfortable stories go away. And so most people moved on, and that was that. But we did not move on. We dug into this story, which should be a huge national scandal. Local authorities in Fresno, California, people who have not been infected by this disease, whereby everyone in the media and government always has to stick to the official narrative, well, those folks out there in Fresno knew this was bad when the existence of the illegal lab was first discovered in December of last year. But their efforts to let the public know were stymied by officials at the California Department of Public Health. They were told that they couldn't publicize what was going on because of the ongoing investigation, which is another term commonly used when authorities try to suppress the truth. And when Fresno County officials drafted a statement, the California Department of Public Health quickly stepped in to redraft the statement for them, making sure it was cleansed of anything that might let the public know what was really going on. They even added a sentence to say that there was no danger to the public, which, as we shall see, was not true. Here's a Fresno County official explaining how his team was stymied.
As we're communicating with our federal and state agencies, they're making it very clear to us, we cannot speak on this. This is our protocol. This is what they adhere to, and that they're not able to speak on an ongoing investigation. They've made that clear pretty much from day one.
Well, as usually happens, the truth eventually comes out. In this case, through various court filings that document a sheer incredible story, a scandal of epic proportions which the corporate media is now trying to suppress. And we're going to tell you the whole story from start to finish, or at least to where we are now. The story begins in 2015 when a Chinese-owned company called Universal Meditech set up shop in Tulare, California. Nominally, the company was supposed to make medical testing kits, but based on the account of a former worker there, things seemed to be pretty chaotic from the start. The worker told the Fresno Bee that things were odd and shady about the place, that there were occasional problems with paychecks, that when managers would come to do visits for investors, they would have to get people from outside to come in and work on the production line to make the lab seem more economically viable, and also that the chemicals that the workers had to handle were never identified to them. We had to make this purple liquid for tests. We had to mix the chemicals. We had to cook it. They only told us that it had to be a special fluid perfectly made for the test strips, but they never told us what the chemicals were. They spoke Chinese a lot, so we didn't know what they were saying. And then in 2018, the company moved to Fresno and things only got worse. One of the biggest ongoing concerns about the illegal lab is the fire hazard it poses. We'll get back to that in a moment, but it's important because, and we almost can't believe this actually happened, there was a fire at the same company in 2020 for which the hazmat team had to be deployed. The fire was a big enough deal to have been covered at the time, both in print and in TV news media. We're not making this up. The same company that ran the illegal lab had a lab fire a few years ago during COVID when they were supposedly making COVID tests. Well, it gets even worse. The COVID tests didn't work and were ultimately recalled. What did work, however, was getting subsidized by American taxpayers. Yes, you guessed it, the shady Chinese-owned lab got $150,000 in PPP loans. Of course, those loans were never repaid and ended up being forgiven. $150,000. Poof. And then in 2022, the company was bankrupt and was folded into another company called Prestige Biotech, which is run by someone called Xiaochen Yao, and whose owners also live in China. Now, to be clear, the exact arrangement between Universal Meditech and Prestige Biotech, or how Universal Meditech became Prestige Biotech, remains murky, and we're in part relying on emails exchanged between authorities in Fresno County and Yao, the ostensible president of Prestige Biotech.
So there you have an example of something that, I don't know, does that sound scary to you? That there's unauthorized biolab that's no one really knows much about that gets on, people then figure, wow, there's an illegal, I don't know, unauthorized biolab here in our hometown. Like, holy crap, is there anything to worry about? So mainstream media, we saw how they covered it, and then you see how this particular. So someone had an issue with who's covering it, right? What do you mean? This guy's covering that? It's not CNN. No, CNN didn't. It showed you what mainstream media covered, and it shows you that now they got NewsGuard out there to be the news police, and he's just showing you the documents from the actual court case. So if you got a problem with someone just going out there and actually doing real news, you have a problem, because that's real news to me. That's somebody going out and getting the story and not just saying nothing to see here. Government officials say everything's fine. Oh, good. As long as the Associated Press said government officials says everything's fine. Well, I'd rather see the real court documents, and I appreciate someone going through 365 whatever pages of the thing and actually giving us some information with real journalism. Where's the real journalists from the mainstream media? Do they not care about their families and their community and what's going on with this? And you'll see this at different levels. And yes, a small group of people at the top orchestrate it, and it trickles down. And yes, China is a part of, it's the model that's been created for the world by this small group of people. And so that answers Dave's question, which can't seem to see a connection with anything that I say ever. He wonders why I even talk, I guess. And I'm not sure why he watches the show, to tell you the truth. If I don't like something, I don't watch it. I don't understand. Again, good scientific experiment. But just to see, we talked also about hijacking movements, this whole idea that everybody is equal and included, and obviously, we all should be. That one of my favorite reporters, he used to be on 60 Minutes, John Stossel, talking about, and I just had it up here, so I'm not sure what's going on. He talked about that the other day. And again, I'm not sure what's happening this morning. Everything was queued up, ready to go, and but it'll be here nonetheless. So we got
something
it
like that.
Here you go. So a little bit about someone behind the scenes who worked in this industry of inclusion, diversity, equity, diversion, and inclusion, talking about what's really going down here. So maybe
Diversity,
this will be educational.
equity, and inclusion are everyone's responsibility.
You've been hearing about DEI training. It's supposed to make us aware of our unconscious prejudice. But a former DEI trainer, rhetoric professor Eric Smith, says today's DEI training does more harm than good. Here's my entire interview with Smith.
People do need to be woken up.
Yeah, and that was the point. Diversity walk or something like that, when somebody says how many people grew up in a single parent household and things like that.
If you were encouraged to attend college by your parents and your family members, take one step forward.
The diversity or privilege walk is supposed to teach us how much more or less privilege we have.
If you grew up in a household with two parents, step forward. And at the end of it, the most privileged people are in front and the least privileged people are in back. I did that, but it wasn't to guilt anybody. It wasn't to say, you need to check your privilege. It was to say, look at the world here. Look at what's going on. We should be aware of these things.
Why not tell people to check their privilege? Some of us have privilege.
Yes, but some of us are accomplished, and that's being called privilege. And I think that's unfair. It's one thing to be born on third base and act like you hit a triple. It's another thing to be born on first base and still second, right? And again, third. That's an accomplishment.
And that's frowned upon now?
Well, it's frowned upon by people who find it strategic to frown upon it, yes. If you can keep this race thing going, then you'll always have a business in getting rid of racism. Even Ibram X. Kendi proposed a branch of government, right, regarding anti-racism. And what do you need to justify that? You need racism. It's in his best interest to perpetuate racism, in order to maintain a career. Then there are people who are like, wow, well, this is a, billion-dollar industry. I'm going to get in on this. Do my trainings and things like that and accuse people of racism just to keep it perpetuated, right? To keep it going so that it never goes away, so that I keep making my money.
It is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes, it
now.
is.
Every big company.
Yeah.
They feel they have to.
Right, and there it is. They feel like they have to. They have to say something. They have to signal to the world that they're doing something. Whether that something is effective or not is secondary.
Is it effective?
It doesn't seem to be effective, no. In fact, it seems to be doing worse. It seems to be making people less likely to interact with people who are unlike them, because it's like a minefield now.
Less likely to interact?
Yes. After a training where you hear things about microaggressions, right? Microaggressions. If you ask somebody what they do for a living, somehow that's racist, right? If you learn that, then why would you take a chance?
I better not talk to Eric because I might say something wrong.
Precisely.
Any other ideas about this not working?
Well, if you compel people, to go to certain things just out of pure resentment, they may, back away and rebel. I saw that myself even when I was doing diversity training that wasn't especially woke.
All this money is spent, all these courses, all this time. Why doesn't it get the results they want?
Well, it might be getting the results they want. Depends on who you mean by they.
Why doesn't it bring racial harmony to the office?
Because diversity, equity, and inclusion, those words don't mean what most people think they mean. Diversity is diversity of bodies, of skin color, ethnicity, not of thought. You can have many different bodies, but they have to be, basically on the same page ideologically. That page is often something akin to critical social justice. Inclusion means, well, you can't make people uncomfortable. And in a world of microaggressions, that's easy to do. So now inclusion means I'm going to silence myself and not talk to the black people, right? And equity, as most people know, does not mean equality. It means equality of outcome, right? We have to make sure everybody ends up at the same place, no matter how they got there, which is why we get rid of aptitude tests, which is why we get rid of AP classes, which is why we have equitable math and things like that. That's equity.
Because there were too many Asians and whites in the AP class.
Apparently, or not enough black people. And that's interesting. It's easy to say people are doing this out of resentment, right? But some people may be doing this out of love. Is it hate for white people or love for black people? And what's motivating them? Now, yes, they're still misguided, but they see this as, well, the ends justify the means, and the ends are racial equality and black dignity, so I'm going to do what I have to do.
But it's real. We whites have most of the power, most of the money. We hold most of the high positions. Some of that is genuine achievement. Some is racism.
Yeah. So what do? You give other people the opportunity to acquire those things themselves. You get them into a good school. You bring back institutions like churches and other after-school programs. You teach them what it means to be an entrepreneur in this world. It's not just about victimhood. It's not just about white oppressors. There's some of that going on, but there's also some agency that we have, to get to where we want to go. And if we keep saying, well, there's nothing we can do, we can't win because of the white oppressor, then what is that going to do to an entire group of people? Nothing good.
And what's it going to do if you say being on time is not a good thing?
Right. Or that, a standardized English, at least having proficiency in it, is a form of oppression. What are you really doing? I mean, if you wanted to hold down a group of people without them knowing it, this woke thing is a good strategy.
Another example, this is a LinkedIn course by Robin DiAngelo.
Yes, inspired by Robin DiAngelo anyway, yes.
Inspired.
Yes.
And this blew up on the internet. Why?
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, it was Coca-Cola that got caught doing this. I show this to my students every semester as an exigence. So what do you do, conflict management? What do you do when your company does this? I actually use that example as a kind of lesson. But what was happening there is a diversity training in which whiteness in general was the problem. And the thesis statement, if you will, of this training was try to be less white.
Try to be less white means?
Try to be less European or Eurocentric or more Enlightenment driven. Try to be less classically liberal.
be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less ignorant. It's reasonable.
That is by no means a white thing. But the point is to demonize the other side as much as possible. Marcuse called this repressive tolerance. Nothing the other side can do can be accepted. We have to demonize them in all ways.
And the white leaders of these groups pay money to be trashed.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage, right?
Hundreds of studies suggest anti-bias training doesn't reduce bias.
I believe that. Yeah, I mean, what it's doing is creating more chaos, in certain places. Now, maybe there are places that are having, big issues with race relations and things like that, and that can be dealt with in various ways. But some places are, people are getting along, right? They're working well together. But the implicit bias training is put there because human resources said we have to do this. Right? And now we're thinking about things like, I want to ask this guy what time it is, but is that bad? In some way, that has to be bad now, right? So you get people apprehensive and they're not talking to each other anymore.
Asking people to suppress stereotypes tends to reinforce them.
Well, now you're thinking about it more, right? If you're constantly thinking about, oh, am I going to say something wrong? Then you're thinking about saying something wrong. You're thinking about those stereotypes. So yes, it puts these things in the forefront of our minds, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
Researchers looked at 800 companies after mandatory DEI trainings. 5 years later, no increase in diversity of hiring. Companies actually saw a 9% fall in how many black women were hired.
It's one thing to say they don't work. It's another thing to say they make things worse, right? You would think that people would see that data and change their minds or change their methodologies or something like that. It's not about
data
that, though.
Data doesn't seem to have much to do with it.
No, it's not. It doesn't have much to do with it. It's not about data. It's not really about material change, right? It's about a power grab. It's about a culture change.
And they're winning, it seems to me.
They're winning in certain contexts, yes. They seem to be winning in my field anyway, of rhetoric and composition.
Academia.
Yeah, yes, especially the humanities, social sciences, things like that. And now more and more the sciences, medicine even, but I don't think it's that bad there.
Why isn't it that bad?
I think those fields are more steeped in reason, scientific method. The barriers of idiocy, if you will, are thicker there already.
But I just saw all these medical students reciting privilege messages.
We recognize inequities built by past and present traumas rooted in white supremacy, colonialism, the gender binary, ableism, and all forms of oppression.
Yeah, that's happening. I think a lot of this is performance as well. A lot of this is what people call virtue signaling. That virtue signaling is reaching, theatrical proportions right now.
What made you think something was wrong?
Well, I thought something was wrong for a while. I didn't realize how wrong it was until 2019, when a keynote address at the primary conference for my field, college composition and communication.
Melt the steel bars of racism and white language supremacy.
The keynote argued that, among other things, teaching standard English to students of color, particularly black students, is inherently racist.
If you use a single standard to grade your students' languaging, you engage in racism.
It's racist to teach black kids standard English. That perpetuates white supremacy.
Yes, that's the idea, right? And even the presence of white professors is a problem. That does some kind of psychic harm to students of color. So I heard that, thought it was a bit misguided, and said so on a listserv in my field, the Writing Program Administrators listserv. I put it out there basically in a long-form way, asking, is this really a good idea? Is this the best way to go about this? And what ensued was hardly a conversation. It was more like a social media mobbing session.
You wrote, I'm concerned that the current leadership will have you believe that teaching standard English experiences tyranny by our black and brown co-ed.
Yes, so what they're saying is that to have students of color, especially black students who are descendants of slaves and things like that, to, on top of everything, force them to speak in a way that isn't their language, or write more appropriately in a language that isn't theirs, is inherently oppressive. The idea is that if you learn one dialect, you're replacing another. There's no idea that you're adding a dialect to your repertoire of dialects. That's not a possibility. You know, it has to be rendered as some kind of oppressor-oppressed dichotomy in order to fit a particular narrative.
And isn't it unfair? I mean, I have German parents who learned English in school, and they learned the supposed proper English. It gives a black kid who grew up without hearing that a disadvantage.
All the more reason for that black kid to learn it, you know, at the high school or college level. This is about practicality. It's about pragmatism. It's about looking at a certain situation, gauging the audience, and making sure that you speak or write in a way that will, you know, best persuade them, best get their attention. The whole point of rhetoric is to gauge your situation and act, speak, or write accordingly. Aristotle's definition is the primary definition of rhetoric. Rhetoric is the ability in any given situation to discern the available means of persuasion. So what's available, that depends on who your audience is, what they already know, what they want to know, what their values are, things like that. So if your goal is to persuade, you're going to do whatever it takes to persuade them. And if you can learn a dialect that is prominent in most civic and professional situations in America anyway, you'll be better able to do that. So there's a practicality here that's being ignored. It's all about, black students are being eclipsed in some way. Their cultures are being suppressed. That's hardly the case.
So you, for arguing this, thought there'd be a discussion.
Well, I mean, we are professors in communication. I thought we could communicate. You know, I was so wrong about that. I guess people were sick of the conversation. People often said, we had this conversation already, aren't we past this? And as a rhetorician, you can't say things like that. You're never past a conversation. There's always somebody else who has a say. And if they don't have a say, this is not a pluralistic and civil society. This is something very different. The philosopher Kenneth Burke had a kind of allegory, the parlor allegory, where there's a conversation going on at a party, and you go in and you can't just start talking right away. You don't know what the topic is, so you have to listen a little bit. In order to contribute, you have to first listen, and then you speak accordingly. You know, that's what we're trying to teach students, or that's what I thought anyway. Now it's about dignity and decentering whiteness.
Instead of a discussion, people called you racist.
So that's exactly the whole reason for this show in the first place, is to listen. And to, even though you're sharing a clip from something you were told was the devil, if you listen to what they're saying and not think that I was told not to listen to this person because it's not mainstream or it's not government sanctioned, then that's the whole reason for the show, is to open your mind to things. And that's why I played a good chunk of that interview, is you could just take a clip and you can go off on a tangent. But when you actually really take the time to really listen to someone who knows what they're talking about, it's really well thought out. You're more enriched for being able to do that. We did go a little bit over time today, and so I just felt it was needed. And so I'll have to make some provisions with Earshot Daily following the show here on CKLU 96.7 FM. But thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for commenting, everyone. I know sometimes they're not easy discussions, and we go to all the hard places. And I'm glad that we're still able to have a discussion. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for commenting, and have a great and wonderful weekend, everyone. We'll see you same time, same place on Monday. So God willing, we'll have a great one then as well. So have a great weekend. Ciao, everyone.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.